Okay, here it is. I'm going to try and do this in one take. This is the intro to a series I'm going to start doing. I don't know how many episodes it'll be. It'll be a minimum of 8 because of what I'm going to cover. You're kind of already see down here a little obvious what I'm going to talk about today. And happily enough, I actually passed the exam. So this will be, and what I'm trying to do right now is a brain dump because while I still have all this stuff fresh on what worked, what did in the last few months I've been studying, and which is why I've been gone for a while. Anyway, this is an intro to the series Takin a CISSP, the CISSP brain dump, not the exam dump, a brain dump of stuff that did and didn't work on preparing for the exam and things that I learned along the way. So, anyway, as I mentioned, I just took this exam back in late June and provisionally passed. I'm waiting on some stuff to get back in the mail, like certificate and all that. And I'm going to do another video where I get an unboxing, if you will. In the meantime, I want to talk about what worked and what didn't. And I'm bringing this up because since passing, I've had the conversation a few times on Reddit and a few coworkers explaining what I did and didn't work. So I'd rather just create a video and then I can say, hey, here's a video, check this out, and because I'm going to either forget or things will change. So anyway, it took 2 attempts. I'm not the best test taker by any means, especially with the written test. They really irritate me, and this is only the second, what the I forget the acronym, the adaptive test. The only second one I've taken, type of test taken, and on this attempt I passed. So both times it's funny that both times I took this test, I took about approximately 3 months of study time between the two. The first attempt was early 2020, when like late 2019, I was like, okay, I'm going to sign up for this exam and knock it out in 3 months. Ended up taking it beginning of January 2020, and there were no lockdowns, so there was no excuse or anything. I just I studied a little bit, but I didn't really have a plan. I just took a lot of practice questions. I read the book a bit, took some notes, but I didn't really have a plan for studying, and I subsequently failed. The second, and in the time I've been studying for OSCP, so had all my focus on that, and been working, and still haven't passed that one, by the way, but I'm going to work on that too and get back to it real soon. I tend to only spend a few months at a time working on that. Anyway, so second attempt, this time around, I had just failed the OSCP for nth time earlier this year, like mid-March, and this is around the time my boss at a job I worked was wanting to get everybody certified for CISSP. It kind of was related to the job. It wasn't the first goal, mind you. It was a goal, but it wasn't like the first thing I was going after. Because I figured, well, working in security, I'd have to have the 5 years minimum experience, blah, blah, blah. So why really shoot for it when I have less than that time experience? I'm not going to come in associate. I'd rather just go full member all the way in. Anyway, so after a couple of conversations, I was kind of bummed about failing that exam, so I was like, okay, fine, screw it. I'm just gonna knock this thing out. It's just I want to get out of the way and over with. And I kind of got like a little more, like a bit of a punch, a more aggressive approach. So this time around, I just instantly committed and scheduled exam 3 months out. That was probably helpful because it told me I'm gonna pass this thing, and the sooner I pass this, I can work on it and move on to other things. So what I did this time around was I set up a plan. I was like, okay, I'm going to take this exam in 3 months. And this is like late March. So it was about 3 months, 10 days to the day. And okay, I was like, well, what resources did I put together the first time around? And that's where all these links are for. I'm just going to dump all this stuff in and what worked. So this time around, I was like, okay, first month I'm going to do this. Second month, do this. Third month, do this, and take the exam. So what I'll do is the first month, and I'll show the one other resource I have in here that I'm not showing right now. But the first time around I did the study was there's this app. Let me see. Come on. There you go. and it's called the CISSP Study. And then there, oh jeez, drop stuff on the keyboard. And there's this focus doesn't focus well. Anyway, I'll leave links. It's basically if you look up on the App Store or the Android store, I imagine. I don't have an Android, so I don't really have a point of reference there. The CISSP test and study app. The official ones. What else did I study with? While I'm getting all this stuff out, I'll talk about the app and what I did the first time. So the first time around, I bought all this stuff. The 11th hour CISSP, the official test or the official practice test, and the official book. So the first time around, what I did was I got a bunch of these post-it notes. These are real handy. I find them real handy for books now, and this has been a really effective method. So I went through the book. I didn't really read chapter by chapter and memorize everything in here and dive deep into the topics. I basically just highlighted stuff. Anything that was in bold, I was like, okay, probably going to talk about it. So I put a post-it note in there. Like all these are just post-it notes where stuff is in the book. I might have one or two things highlighted, but stuff in there is where I'd go. So I did that in that book. I didn't honestly, and I still haven't read through probably even a third of this book. But did a lot of studying on topics individually and looked stuff up. The next thing I did, as far as, and I did this on both attempts, along with the stuff in the book, was taking those practice tests on the app. One thing it'll do is it'll kind of gauge percentage of how you're doing in each domain. So that was important. So I do one test at the beginning. Okay, here's domains you need to work on. And then sometimes daily, I would just do 5 or 10 questions and just on either one domain or do them all. And sometimes I'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to focus on, for this time, I do this in the first time around, I only do this in bursts of 10, real small burst, and leave it alone after that. And that was helpful a little bit, but I didn't finish all the domains before I took the exam, and that might have been led to my failure. So what I did different the second time around, and this goes in that whole planning thing I was talking about, was the first month I told myself, I'm going to power through, the first month actually was powering through all the practice questions. I'm going to mention the study questions, practice questions over and over, and really it's a game of attrition. So what ended up working for me was just getting as many questions in as possible and then taking notes on stuff I kept missing over and over, whether it be not really the question itself, but the topic. So if I kept missing questions related to cipher suites or questions related to access controls, and I barely remember those now, I would basically say, okay, I'm going to write this down, access controls or something about cipher suites, and then read up on it later. So the first month I told myself I'm going to finish all the practice questions in the book, in the official practice test book right here. So altogether, there's about 1,100 questions in the entire book. I did all of them. So each of the domains, and what I did after that was for each domain, I would grade myself and see where I was struggling at, percentage-wise. Oops. And so by the end of the first month, I knew, okay, focus on the domains I'm weakest in. Don't spend so much time on the stuff I'm doing a little bit better in. And then for each of the topics, each of the domains I go through and start, like I said, I start writing stuff down. If I start not understanding things, I would just start writing it down. And the writing down helps. It commits to memory better when you write it. There's probably some study out there that confirms this. I have no idea, but it works for me. Great. So, and on each topic, I'm writing down all these different things. I'm stuck here. And once I did that, okay, that was the first month. The second month, I decided, okay, I'm going to go through all the mobile app questions. Originally, I was going to go for a 100% score, but that was taking a long time. And instead of the 10 questions at a time, I would sometimes knock out 50. And by the way, I'm not doing this actively where I'm just staring at the screen. I had a TV show in the background sometimes. And sometimes that definitely did dictate the score I was going to get, which wasn't that high. Or I'd be doing it while I was eating. It was very passive. So, what I do with that in that month is like I'd start writing some more stuff down. I might look up a thing or two that would explain this a little better, because the book will explain things a certain way, the test will explain things a certain way. Some of those would provide, if you bookmark the questions you miss on the app, there's a mobile section that lets you bookmark them, and it will, if you go take the bookmarking test again, it'll show you what you did wrong, or what the answer, it'll kind of give an explanation of what the answer was. Uh-oh, I lost camera. There we, okay. Am I back? I'm back. I should not mess with that. So, anyway, the second month I'd go through the exam prep questions, and I didn't take the actual exam test. There's two apps, so there's a study app and there's a test app. I did the test app like once or twice, taking the exam on each one, and don't worry about passing or failing that one. Just score what you can and then learn from your mistakes. Real simple. The only test you have to pass is the exam day one, really. So by the time I got to the third month, that's when I did more of those questions still, but then I started using the 11th hour book. And I didn't take a lot of notes in there. I just skimmed through it and then looked at topics and said, well, and the same thing, I just kind of figured out, okay, what's still not sinking in, what things am I really comfortable with? Just keep moving on to the next thing. I was real skittish more about domains 3 and 5, the security architecture engineering and the identity access management one, because of the architecture engineering one's pretty heavy with a lot of topics. Like if you're not doing stuff with PKI on a daily or building stuff out, then a lot of stuff doesn't sink in, especially the crypto related stuff. That's a whole other bear. And the same with identity access management. If you are like creating accounts and understanding, especially if you're a manager of one of those teams, you get an understanding of those concepts really well, like with discretionary access control, mandatory access control. It all starts making more sense. And you'll notice with each domain, there's stuff you probably are more familiar with because you see it on a daily than others. You see them all in one aspect or another where you work, or a lack of, depending on how mature the environment is you're in. So some of the stuff is going to be real easy to pick up on, some of it isn't. And that's one thing what I'm going to do with these domains is I'm not going to so much there's not going to be questions and answers, because to be honest, even if I wanted to violate the rules or didn't care, I don't remember most of the questions on the exam, let alone like, well, this topic was here. I remember there was stuff that was on the first one that wasn't on the second attempt. So, and that happens with the exams. I don't really recall most of the questions. I just remember one thing I did too was read stuff very carefully, and someone gave me some really good advice that helped out with the exam. So you get a piece of paper with a lot of these exams. You get a piece of paper, and it doesn't seem to make sense because it's not like you're like doing a lot of math. There's only like one or two things you might have math-related questions on in this whole book, or the concept or the topics. But you can take notes on there. So there's a lot of formulas I didn't remember off top from the beginning. So what I did was write them down a lot when I was studying, and then when I took the exam, I went in, and the first thing I did was like, okay, this, done, here we go. And I'll probably talk about those in the individual domains. Another thing somebody advised to do was like write on your exam paper A, B, C, D. And what you do, because a lot of it is just like a process of elimination. So read the question fully and slowly, and that's one thing I did, and why I took the entire time for the exam. Because one thing I did in the first attempt that I was like rushed through, I struggle school-wise with like exam questions because I will like rush through. I want to get it done, move on to the next thing. And I just slowly read through this time around, and slowly read each of the answers too, sometimes before and after making my decision. So where I had those letters A, B, C, and D, I was like, okay, I would put an X to next to the next one. Like, okay, that one's not that one's definitely wrong. That one's kind of wrong. Okay, these two are better. And as you start narrowing stuff down, the answer will come to you. And so that was helpful too. Another thing this person advised to was right on the top in large letters, "You are the CEO," and putting you into the frame of the person in charge making the decisions here. You're kind of, I guess, as this role, you're going to be doing that. You're advising from very top level. You're not in the weeds, and a lot of us tech people make the mistake of thinking of things in the weeds. Like, I'm going to make this change on the firewall. I'm going to do that. No, don't do that. You are the big picture person. So and that doesn't mean just like, okay, I'm going to tell this guy to make the change, or this person to make the change on the firewall, or tell this person over here do this. It's, what's the problem? What do we need to do? Not so much in the weeds. It's way up here. So that was helpful. So what I'm going to do is, for the next few videos I work on, I'm going to be taking a CISSP and just talking about each of the different domains. What I want to try and do, though, instead of just like read all the academic stuff, is I want to try and correlate something real world that I may have encountered on each of these domains. To put it in perspective, that's one thing that was helpful. Is like, I've been working in IT for a while, so some of these things weren't really that new to me. Some of it I didn't realize I knew. Like, I was surprised I did as well as I did with the software dev security in terms of studying and the exam itself, because I'm not a developer. So, but concepts like agile, waterfall, and the software maturity model, like, those things I've heard of before. So what I'll do is I'll mention a few key things in each domains, like things I would get stuck on, but I'm also going to mention some kind of real world thing. Like, with risk management, you get a lot of those asset value and exposure factor, like all those different, the single loss expectancy, all those different, the equations basically. So what I'll do for an example is okay, something crashes into your data center or building and takes out your office. So you go into the math of that. I don't have the specifics on it, but I can think of stories where some of this may apply, or where these things have been done wrong I've seen in the past. Nothing too specific, but you get the idea. A little real world experience, because the academic side only covers so much, and as we know, some of the faults of these test and certification programs is a lot of them focus more on the academic and the theory and not into the real world. So I'll try to bring some perspective there. I may or may not throw some slides in there. I want to make this a little bit comprehensive. So, and by the way, this will probably only be as effective. I want to try and make the advice effective in general. So 3 or 4 years from now, when this material is outdated, some of the stuff may still apply as far as just general things you can think of, unless they change up how the domains are structured. Because at one point, there was a whole thing on physical security in its own domain. So with that, I'm going to talk about the material I used again and give links. I'm going to include these links in the video as well in the description. So this is going to be the GitHub repo I'm going to be putting all the stuff in. Whether there be presentations or other things, I'm going to include those. I want to templatize it. So each domain is going to have some kind of like either PowerPoint slides, a video, and a brief description. And we'll get into that as we go. And I'll lead back to this. I'll always reference this in the future links for this series. The next thing I'm going to cover is the resources I used. So and this is a pain for me from what I've seen with a lot of stuff, because every other week you're going to hear about some new training, some new thing, like I was on Cybrary for a bit. There's other books. And I mentioned on a Reddit thread, and I'll leave the link for that too. This is why I'm kind of doing this, the video version of this, is I have a lot of respect for the people that do all the stuff with the videos and content, but at the same time, like, whether it be a Cybrary with Kelly Hanahan's videos, which are done well, I didn't make it through all of them, and for in all honesty, I had been focusing on. I wanted to focus on a handful of things and stick with them. Because one thing I noticed is, and you'll find this as you're going through this video and some of the stuff in the series, in a week there's going to be some new Udemy or other thing that you have to get on right away. Blah blah blah. I'm just going to explain what works. So I use the official book and the testing guide, and usually they come in a bundle. So I didn't use any of this. So here's what I used: the practice and official test. That was pretty effective. I didn't have flashcards. I probably would have benefited from them, who knows, but I passed with what I had, so here we are. So I definitely use the official CISSP study and practice test apps. I probably use those more than anything else. There's also glossaries and flashcards on the app, and it kind of gave me a gauge on what to focus on. The next thing I used was obviously the practice test. I did that for the whole first month, just power through. Like I said, there's about 1,300. Oh, here we go. It's over 1,000 questions. So I did all the practice, but I only did them once. I didn't go through over and over, and go through each of the tests and read through. I literally just powered through them, all 1,300 of them, and figured out how I scored in each domain. This one, I put a bunch of notes in the book. I wrote some stuff here and there, but I didn't read it cover to cover. I can, however, because there's still a lot of information in it that might be beneficial post CISSP, because I plan on helping some other people out in obtaining the cert. And there's definitely a ton of notes and stuff in here. So the post-its are helpful on a long-term basis. Yeah, there it is. And dumping stuff in. So those resources I use, along with the 11th hour CISSP. Oh, here we go. Okay, yeah. So that it's this blue one. There might be a newer edition. And by the way, the material is probably going to change the next month or so. But having the approach is going to be the most important aspect of how you pass the exam, not which material you have, because it's all going to change. It's all going to pull from the same information. So here we are. Yeah. So you might even find them all bundled together. Next thing. Okay, that's the official one. The next thing I recommend people doing, if you're going to use a resource that isn't the official books and to get information from and will save you time, is the CISSP subreddit. There's tons of people that'll talk about passing it. I posted something in there, and it's kind of what stems why I'm doing this video, with lots of information. A lot of people explaining how they passed, whether they failed, things that did and didn't work. You're going to hear ranges from I studied for 2 weeks to I studied for 18 months. Your miles may vary depending on how you study and how you do things, how you learn. So take it all with a grain of salt. The next thing, if I did anything else other than Reddit, the other non-ISC squared official or 11th hour one I used were 2 YouTube channels that I followed. The Inside Cloud Security one, this channel breaks down, there's some playlists. Here they are. There's some for a ton of these. So I pretty much just went up and down this playlist over and over. And I have YouTube Premium, so because I use YouTube Music a lot and other things. So I downloaded the playlist, and I go on walks and just have it playing in the background over and over. Like, go on a walk for an hour and have it on in the background. Even if I was like cooking or doing something else, I had a lot of this stuff on in the background. Probably only watch these videos actively once, not even all of them, maybe a couple of videos in here. There's some that cover each of the domains. Some of them, like asset security, were pretty short, but then there's some that were ridiculously long, like the engineering one, about an hour and a half or so. Let me plug this in because my battery's about to die. Don't lose the camera. There you go. Okay. So the other playlist or series of videos I watched was the destination certification. These were helpful too. Once again, just like the Inside Cloud Security videos, I just had this on in the background and passively listen to them. I might have been cooking, like any number of things. That's all I had for as far as the exam itself. I was gonna do these originally and just like piece them together, and I originally, because I don't post videos as often, was going to have this done before I take the exam, or at least halfway through. but I just passed the exam, so now I'm going to make a point to dump what I've learned out before I forget. With that, I don't have much else. I'm not monetizing this at the moment. I'm gonna turn that off because I'm not producing enough videos, and it's we'll see how it goes as I go. I do get asked to make more videos, so and because of this material, wanting to share this and save people a few bucks, I'm going to make some more videos out. So with that, have a good Saturday afternoon and happy hunting. Bye.